Warner Brothers Discovery and Embracer Group are in the early stages of the collaborative project called the Middle-earth Enterprise, which includes a new Lord of the Rings movie. Oh my, if I was an Amazon executive, I'd probably be sweating right about now, because of course Amazon's own venture into Middle-earth turned out to be an absolutely epic disaster. One that Amazon is now internally scrambling to try and hide or spin. But we'll get to that in a second. First, let's talk a little bit about this new Lord of the Rings movie here, shall we? So, one of the things that these guys have done is immediately reach out to the people who made the previous movies enormous successes. They've reached out to Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyes, and of course Peter Jackson, whom they say that have kept us in the loop every step of the way. Warner Brothers and Embracer, that is. So they are actually engaging in conversation with the people who made the previous successes, which is something that Amazon quite famously said they would do and then elected not to after all. Now, this is of course a very obvious move. For Warner Brothers, etc., obviously you want to try and tie your project somehow to the previous successes. Duh, it's clear. But Amazon didn't do that because first and foremost Amazon wanted this project to be their Lord of the Rings. They wanted to take over the entire setting and the franchise and make it first and foremost an Amazon property. Warner Brothers Discovery and Embracer Group, at least at the moment, don't have quite that much hubris. They would rather just make a good product first and then worry about world conquest second, which is a good way to go about it. Now, the project is in the very early stages at the moment, and no actual director or filmmakers have been attached to it yet, mind you, but if I were them, I'd probably be sniffing around Peter Jackson and the crew, even if they might not have the skills or the confluence of circumstance to recreate the lightning. And bear in mind too, that is absolutely a thing. Even if you get the whole crew, there is no guarantee you will make magic again. That's always an important thing to remember. But they definitely at least want them on side. And I'm sure they will spend a lot of time stunting on the Rings of Power as well, because, well, it's a free marketing opportunity, frankly. As Amazon, again, they're worried. They're panicking just a little bit. And this could very well be the final nail in the coffin here. So I have a few interesting things to show you. This is a little bit of a sneak peek behind Amazon's back end. Lord of the Rings, they mean Rings of Power, subs forecast is massively overstated. Please fix the LOTR subscription forecast in dub these the massive spike is not real, as a gnat infiltrated my room yet again. Even winter didn't kill them all. I am not looking forward to summer. So, okay, there is a fake massive bump in subscribers to Amazon Prime, connected to the Rings of Power. Weird, especially at this fairly late point. But there's more. I was looking through the business driver growth ratios for Season 2 of the Rings of Power. I find anomalies in subscription external growth ratio for the EU, which was 26, whereas for other regions or marketplaces it was below 7. Okay, so the back-end staff here are seeing some very weird discrepancies in the supposed growth of the Rings of Power Season 2. So, business driver growth right here. So this is a term that basically means anything and everything that feeds into the growth of a business. In the case of Amazon Prime, a subscription service, of course, it would be, well, subscriptions themselves and advertisement revenue for people getting ads on their site, or for leading people to other parts of the site to click on that, etc. It's anything and everything that goes into, making the money. There's also this here. So these are the interesting numbers, right? Clickstream external growth rate, playback external growth rate for the various regions like the European Union, FE, Far East Asia, perhaps, and NA North America. So these are the ones that they seem to think are overstated. Now, we don't know exactly what these numbers mean, but if I was a betting man, I'd place my money on percentage points. So Clickstream external growth rate. So that is anything and everything like ads or advertisement or links, etc. Anything outside of Amazon Prime that will eventually lead back to Amazon Prime and to The Rings of Power Season 2. So these numbers are pretty huge. Like little green marker obviously indicates, up, positive growth. 46 points in the EU, 32 here, 56 in Asia, if we assume that it is, 47 in North America. Playback external growth rate, so, replays and actual plays of the content. 10, 17, 12, 7.5, 9, 2.5, 4.5, 40. Okay, that's rather optimistic, especially as this one here seems to indicate that the expected one was below 7 for all regions previously. So, if we assume that these are percentage growth, right? So, they presume they're going to try and get a 7% growth overall from Season 1. Alright, optimistic, but not entirely impossible, especially not with the amount of marketing that Amazon puts behind their Rings of Power. And yet the actual numbers that seem to have been presented are way above that, then mentioning 26 points here. Alright. I discussed this, and we concluded that since we have Lord of the Rings Season 1, Lord of the Rings Season 1, Rings of Power Season 1, we should have default value for all business drive ratios. The default value is 1.0, and I will be updating that. DHI provided season level instead of individual, so maybe they are trying to indicate that this is the growth over the course of the entire season, perhaps? But even then, this is remarkably optimistic number. So why would Amazon be doing this? Bearing in mind that forecasts like these are entirely normal. It's the company trying to guess at what kind of success it might have. In large part, this is also to entice investors and say, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this, it's amazing. We're expecting huge growth, you gotta get on board now. And then if it turns out to all be complete bullshit, they'll shrug and say, well, it was just an educated guess. We did our best, but didn't quite live up to expectations. And at no point will this be considered a lie or anything, because it isn't. It's just a guess, bro. And we also know, at least one know, we know for relative certain, considering all the rumors swirling around, that Amazon's investors are up in arms over the failures of the Rings of Power. And, that sounds almost impossible to not believe, because if you, as an investor, was told that you have the opportunity to buy into the next Rings of Power, no, actually, that would make you run away. Into the next Lord of the Rings success, pointing over to the Peter Jackson massive financial successes, of course. You'd be foolish not to put some money down, wouldn't you? But then they produced something that had nothing to do with the Lord of the Rings whatsoever, except for, trying to tear down as much of Tolkien's legacy as humanly possible, I suppose. That's a connection of sorts, isn't it? You might then be rather peeved upon learning that you poured your money into a project that was literally doomed to failure before the first frame was put to film. Yeah, so to try and entice them back and to calm them down a little bit, you give them numbers like this. Optimistic ones. Now, whether or not that'll be quite enough to fool them, I don't know, especially with this project on the way, because, alright, Warner Brothers Discovery and Embracer Group 2 both have engaged in woke fiascos in the past and might still be evolving them. Now, we do know that Embracer Group recently changed their tune quite drastically after the Saints Row reboot disaster. I covered that just the other day, when it turns out that a woke reboot of Saints Row is not what anybody wants. Imagine that. And so, Embracer Group is currently restructuring their entire internal greenlighting process to try and avoid such a failure again. Because apparently previously they were listening to what they presumed to be the experts. Bearing in mind, Embracer Group is probably not politically motivated at all as far as we can see. They seem to be good old-fashioned cold-blooded capitalists, which is something I miss these days, frankly. And so they were like, okay, we've got lots of game entities, we've got a lot of franchises. Here we've got Volition. They've got a pretty damn solid track record of development, which they do. And they want to reboot one of their successful game series, Saints Row. Okay, well, they know best what people want out of this series, obviously, because they're the people working on it. So if they say this'll work, well, it'll work. Well, if it was Volition of 10, 15 odd years ago, maybe, but not the Volition of today. Lesson learned. Warner Bros. Discovery as well, they've been engaging in some internal pseudo-purges for quite some time, and with the recent astronomic success of Hogwarts Legacy, you would think they'd be getting the message pretty loud and clear right about now that what people want is good old-fashioned entertainment. If you make something true to the universe, then, surprise, surprise, the fans of that universe will go watch it and thank you for it. It's a real high-level logic going on here, boys. And hopefully, they're actually going to have learned that lesson and put it into practice with The Lord of the Rings. And if they do, there is no way this will not pound the Rings of Power into the dirt. As given the alternative between something that breaks the entire lore on purpose for shits and giggles and something that is made for the fans of that property, well, it's not going to be much of a choice. It's like Warner Brothers and Embracer Group, they have been given the keys to the castle here, and all they need to do is insert a twist. But companies have fucked up easier things than that in the past, so let's not become overly optimistic just yet until we begin seeing some details on this project, but I mean, you'd have to try to fuck this up. You'd have to put in some serious effort, which I do believe they're capable of doing, having seen Welma, but it sure would be nice to get some good Lord of the Rings. It would be nice to just return to the Peter Jackson era, wouldn't it? Where the filmmaker himself is like, okay, I've got my politics, I got my ideas, and I'm just gonna take those and I'm gonna put them off over there, because we're not making that movie. We are making a J.R.R. Tolkien movie. Can't go wrong. Please, Discovery, Warner Brothers, Embracer Group, please. Think about it for a second. You know what's right and wrong here, so make the right decision. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching and listening, and do let me know what you think. Do you think there's hope? I mean, again, Warner Brothers Discovery, they've been making a lot of the right moves, but they've also been making a lot of the wrong moves as well. And the Saints Row reboot thing with Embracer Group, I mean, they're making the right reactions to their mistakes, is what I'll say there. Cautious optimism may not even be warranted yet, but it's... Man, I hope so. Man, I really do. Till next time, have a good day.